सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Barenuckle Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hello. Well, I have a guest who's back again. Thank you for coming back again, Mr. Robert B. We had a couple of interviews, and now this is, I believe, the third.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Thanks for having me.
and the saga continues. For those who have not heard his first two interviews, they are somewhere in the feed. It's Robert B.
Yeah.
And if you're just listening to this now, you don't need to hear the first two ones, but you can always, if you're curious and you want to hear the beginning of that story, of his story and how we got into all of this, you are perfectly welcome to scroll back. Well, Robert, so welcome. It's 2002. It's 2024 already, man. Can you believe it? I thought I'd be dead. How about you?
I've been through some things in recovery, a lot of transformative things, and a lot of growth and a lot of suffering. No different than anybody in the human condition. To wax poetically, I'll say, at the end of the day, it's all about the endeavors of the human spirit. Some call it the human condition. I just call it another day in the life of a recovering addict.
Yeah.
So, it's if I may, I'd like to kind of, because I'm here in New York. It's 4:20 a.m. here. I normally get up around this time, but I happen to be up a lot earlier, and I saw that you had reached out via Instagram, and we had been trying to put this together for a minute to kind of tie up the loose ends from I think it was Robert B. The Bottom is the Bottom was the title that you gave it, and then the other one was Robert B. Emotional Sobriety. So I'm not sure what title you're going to come up with this, but
we'll come up with some.
Like you mentioned
something
to the listeners, they can always refer back to those because there might be some things that I'm saying that you might not be able to put the dots together. But I'm grateful that I'm up this early, and I'm kind of, for the new year, I'm just trying to get in this practice when I wake up. I don't go back to sleep no matter the time. And that's something I did in my early recovery. It was really helped me a lot. I'm trying to go back to that. Just for people who are just picking it up, who didn't listen to the first two. My name is Robert B. I have been in recovery, clean and sober, for 16 years. My clean date is March 23rd, 2007. I had some varied career in video post-production and TV broadcasting as an engineer, or not an engineer, more of a technician. And I presently work as a substance use counselor in New York City. I am also what they call a peer advocate. I also do that here in New York City. So
what's that? What's a peer advocate?
Peer advocate is somebody who is in recovery themselves. Or they call it a recovery peer advocate, to make it clear. And that's somebody who kind of helps somebody else in recovery. It's not like a 12-step scenario because it's more in a professional capacity. So the dynamic is definitely a little different, but it's basically agencies will hire folks who have that credential to be sort of a guide and a cheerleader for the person who is in treatment, helping them navigate that sort of thing and navigate a lot of the stuff that, like, when we've been, torn down,
Hmm.
things like helping navigate, maybe making an appointment regarding housing, or going to the court with them, or things like that. It's like to be a support, and the
Nice.
lived experience, and it's a non-clinical position. They stress that big time, and all the trainings, and it's important because there's there's a weird dynamic when I'm a clinician. I have that hat on. There is a certain
Distance.
implied, yeah, there's a distance to it, and it's also an implication of a power dynamic, whereas a peer is equal, and
Yeah,
that's
and probably
those are different, approaches.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my background. I'm also an artist, and I'm just a dude, I'm really just trying to come from that perspective. Um, but I normally, when I do get up, and I get up on time and I'm not rushing, I try to, begin my day with prayer, and read a little something from recovery.
Nice.
If you don't mind, I'd like to maybe start that with
Oh,
us.
yeah. I was just going to ask you, can
Yeah,
you read what you've
sure,
read
sure.
today or
I
what you were
prepared a
going
little
to
bit.
read?
Yeah.
Very
So
good.
first off, I just wanted to say, let's just get, just try to get quiet, and just reflect on the presence of a higher power, God of your understanding. And this God is loving and caring, and will not force its will, or her will, his will, upon us unless we ask. So we open ourselves up for this being of love, caring, and support to come in. I'm just going to read a little something. This is from it's a relatively new book from Narcotics Anonymous. It's a daily meditation book. It's called A Spiritual Principle a Day. And today is the 3rd. So this is Coming to Accept Ourselves. And it has a quote: "Our sponsor's acceptance and our higher power's unconditional love made it possible for us to judge ourselves less harshly." And that's from the works, It Works How and Why. That's in step 12. No one comes to NA on a winning streak. Denial had helped us ignore the wreckage, but those days are long gone. Our minds no longer reassure us you're living the dream, especially considering the lousy hand you've been dealt. In early recovery, we may experience rare glimpses of self acceptance, but the mental beatings we give ourselves keep that optimism in check. We are undoubtedly our harshest critics. That's especially true when we make mistakes, not showing up for a friend in need, unintentionally making another member uncomfortable, blowing off a commitment, using again. Even for members in long term recovery, our disease continues to urge us to judge ourselves, not being real about our mistakes, and overindulging in self pity or self destructive runs counter to accepting ourselves as works in progress. One member recalled, though through his steady encouragement in the face of my self made disasters, my sponsor showed me unconditional love and helped me be open to how a higher power was expressing it in my life. As my recovery continued, the chaos lessened, but the temptation to beat myself up remained. Sharing the exact nature of my wrongs in step 5 and still being accepted unconditionally helped me unclench my fists a little quicker. Sponsors tell us the truth about ourselves. Inevitably, that truth is more loving, forgiving, and acceptance than our version of things. Working the steps with our sponsor teaches us to find that truth for ourselves. Through the practice of prayer and meditation, we can check in with a higher power to guide us towards what is real about ourselves, our decisions, our mistakes, rather than relying on what our mind tells us. And then it's for the meditation for the day is, I'll resist, excuse me, I'll resist the urge to beat myself up today. Instead, I'll pick up the phone and call my sponsor. I'll take a moment with my higher power and get real.
Nice.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I definitely That was just what was needed. I only just started using this book. I have other, tons of other meditation books. And just to kind of make comment on that, I definitely know that describes me to a T with the beating myself up. And I think maybe we could call this episode Put Down the Bat and Pick Up the Feather. And man, oh man, I used to hate it when my sponsor would tell me that. That's the corniest shit I've heard. Now, again, this is how the disease will operate for me. Somebody will say something useful like that, put down the bat and pick up the feather. I will have contempt prior to investigation. Then I will suffer. And then I will be like, yeah, that was really good what you just said. So my goal when I grow up in recovery is to bypass that and go to like they're right, and I'm going to enjoy that and use that and not have to suffer. Um, Getting better with those things. So
Good.
how does this tie in with the emotional sobriety piece? Um, just to kind of recap a little bit from the other episodes. Okay. I've had my share of suffering in recovery. And I love what we just read too, because it talks about by our own hand. The big book tells us the problems are of our own making.
Hmm.
One of the gifts of recovery for me, and this is something early, this awakening came and it's still there. It's nice to have the awareness, but it's more important to use the use the awareness. And I'm
Mm.
definitely using it more so now. And it reminded me, there was an old song in the 70s. The lyric was, I could see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all
Mm.
obstacles in my way. And then it kind of hit me. It was like, well, I'm the one who puts the obstacles in the way. But if I'm
Mm.
the one who puts the obstacles in the way and I can admit to this, they can be removed.
Yep.
With me and my higher power, the God of my understanding. He points them out and I get to the privilege to remove them rather than stay in denial and blame and resentment and all that stuff that keeps me back.
Well, I think that things like that are always, um, I think it's really clear for me, and it's, I always find it really sad when I hear people, others. I don't think I ever had that. I never had that kind of thought, but um, this kind of how would how does God do this? This is a horrible world, and how would God let all of this stuff happen? And this is the crux of I have to say the atheist, or the person who thinks God is Santa Claus, or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like, according to, God didn't do this. This is us. This is all us.
yeah.
This human condition is caused by
Sure. Well,
humans.
my
It's not called a
retort to
God
that
condition.
to the folks who the atheists or the agnostic, and I'm not. I don't want to make. I'm trying to curb myself. I don't want to make this like let's bash the atheist thing. That's me. I'm
No.
trying to keep me in line.
Yeah.
However, when that comes up, I usually it's somebody in the program or even outside. I always just look at, like I said, well, God gave us self will, and
Yep.
we can use it to do ill or good. And
Yeah. I'm not
that's
bashing anyone. I'm just
you know
reminding everyone, including myself, that God, like that good orderly
good
direction,
orderly
God, whatever
direction.
you want to call it, it's always available to us. It's only
Yeah,
us that don't do it. And
right.
it's about taking responsibility,
It's yeah. I
whether
mean, you
that's
don't have to put
spiritual
the deity
or
piece in. Yeah,
whether that's spiritual, or whether it's the whether it's a spiritual responsibility, personal responsibility, a good mental health responsibility. If we don't change those attitudes, I mean, I I am talking in a general way, not
yeah,
just about myself. Then then we're going to constantly perpetuate the negative blaming, not taking responsibility and blaming it on some Santa Claus kind of like God. So it's kind of,
yeah.
yeah, I feel very empathetic towards people who have that idea and can't shake it. I really wish that other people, whether
Yeah,
it's God or taking responsibility, I think, I
sure.
think
No, and
I'm,
I feel that too. I mean, I don't know. Even when I was using, I wasn't the guy to fight the dealer and be like, oh, what a scumbag. Like I've had, like my little crimies when I was getting loaded. They would be like, oh, I hate this guy. He's a jerk. Blah, blah. I'm like, listen, I make friends with this guy because he's my supplier. And I also was
Yeah.
kind of like had the thing where it was like, hey, this is the life that I'm in. I just wasn't somebody who just was. I wasn't oblivious to that. I brought this on myself, even though if it was a low degree.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I get it, and I see that in my clients sometimes. I see that in other members, where it's and that was me for a long time. When I was a little kid, I was like, well, God didn't come down and get in the way of me being molested. God didn't come down to rescue me from my father's verbal and emotional abuse, and I really hated on him. And but
mm,
over time, I'll share this real quick. One of the first times I could even remember as a small boy having a conscious contact. I didn't, of course, know what that was. I would, when there would be all kinds of craziness in the house, I would go on these really long walks,
mm,
and I would talk. Some I knew it wasn't just talking to myself. And I go on these long walks, and I would feel connected to something as I was just asking, what is life, and just whatever little kid stuff.
mm.
And I would feel such a peace come over me. Then I would come back to the house and there would be insanity again. And then I would just be like, well, what did you do? I felt all this peace. Now I'm back in here. I said, this is bullshit.
Mm,
Not knowing over time, it's like, no, the peace and the serenity are for you, for me, not
mhm,
necessarily for them. And I'm cool with that. Like a lot of my God hating stuff was reconciled from just being beat up. Um and just being like, you know what, I'll give it a shot, and I've been connected ever since. And I'm not saying I'm perfect with it, but
mm,
most of my troubles are when I separate. God's constantly there, and it's available to anybody at any time. And that's a beautiful thing that the 12 step fellowships give us, is that it's whatever that God looks like to you. And yeah, I was at a meeting the other day, and I don't know. I just was sharing from the floor, and I got all choked up, just trying to share with newcomers about the third step in NA, and how you have a right to the God of your understanding. I said, there's very few things um, that I really stood for, certainly when I was using, but I definitely stand behind that. I'm like,
mm,
I will definitely be like, hey, if you just heard somebody say, whatever, they endorsed a religion or something, not always, but not, it's usually nobody's being malicious, but I try to make sure that the newcomer is like, hey, you know what, this isn't a Christian program, this isn't a Buddhist program, this isn't a,
mm.
it's whatever you want it to be. And I go
Yeah,
out of
that's
my
what.
way because I was so shut off
Yeah,
to God that
yeah.
anything, so it means a lot to me, so I try to just present that to people who are new so that they don't get turned off.
I'm gonna turn off my camera because my internet is getting wonky again.
We oh, okay. Yeah, I see you frozen.
Yeah, it gets like that. My internet's not great. Germany is
As you
like a
said,
third world country.
yeah. Well, you even
Not the
having
Third
issues with
Reich,
that
the
in
Third
Germany.
World. I shouldn't say that. Actually, I probably have to cut that out. Someone's going to get pissed. I mean, no harm.
It could, yeah, it could
I mean, the
present a
nice Jewish
problem.
girl. I'm a nice Jewish girl. I'm a nice Jewish girl from New York. I live in Germany. Maybe I'm allowed to say that. Who knows? Who knows what people get offended with these days?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I just tried to do my best.
Yeah, me too.
Um, so where was I going with all this stuff? So I have had my experiences with emotional or spiritual bottoms, not
Mm,
relinquishing my clean time, but really putting myself in a really messed up position where self-harm was looking good, suicide, things like that. And that's a reality. Doesn't
So
have to
why was it
be
like
your
that? So
reality.
why was
What's
that?
that?
So why was that? Why do you
Well, to
think
kind of
that you
like
were
touch,
why do you
I
think you
can
were feeling that?
tell you exactly why. Um, as I said, I met up with a young lady who was wonderful, but all the while I'm like, I need to really be by myself. I'm a very solitary person. I'm personable, but I like being alone. And recovery to me, because when we're using, there's no self authenticity.
Mm,
There's no reality of the external world or of ourselves. So getting clean and working the steps, you start to find out who you are. And
so how long were you
I
clean at this point?
I was close to 2 years clean. So in
Okay.
my mind, I thought like, hey, I'm good.
Yeah, you got the
I
1 year like that
I'm
suggested.
good. And I definitely wasn't a broken picker in terms of
Mm,
this relationship. There's a wonderful lady. Um, no issues on her end. But inside, it was like, this isn't. And then I felt like, oh my God, now, advance a few more years. We're married. I'm like, I'm still feeling this way. But I couldn't even
mm,
identify it. I can reflect back now, but this is like where the 10th step was. And this is where I was at in my step work at the time. No coincidence there. And it talks about in Narcotics Anonymous step work, if you're feeling some kind of way off, you need to continually look at that, and like AA really, I think, also expands on that more so. What is it in the way I'm thinking and feeling that is
mm,
causing the disturbance, which is all us, right? Now, I didn't really have that practice in my life at that point, and that I wasn't developed enough in that. And I'm not excusing
mm.
my behavior. That's just,
No, it's just
looking
fact.
back.
It's
And
just
it was
fact.
coming out and it was coming through, like the authenticity is trying to burst through to the conscious level. And it just comes to me as anxiety. I can't even label it. I don't know what it is. And
Mm,
as I had mentioned in the previous episodes, that I started acting out at work, and also I felt that I was supposed to become a drug counselor. That was also
mm.
something that was kind of contrary. I'm an artist. I'm more of a techie guy. I interact better with equipment than I do with people. And I'm just like, I have to do this because I built up this whole fiction of who and what I was supposed to be in recovery. And
Mm,
I was dying inside. And
mm,
you can only keep that up for so long. Now, I didn't use behind it, but I imploded my life in a lot of other ways. I did it with, like I said, I'm overloading myself. I'm going to school. And then just as where I was at with my job, they gave me a big promotion, money. This is the TV job I had
yeah,
as I
the one
was
that
going to
I
school.
remember. Yeah.
And I just was like, something told me, like, let that other stuff go. But I didn't, I was being willful, mostly confused, really, and just feeling all torn up inside and not knowing and not having that access. I had the uncomfortability, certainly. And then things came to a head and I got myself fired from that job. I did go into the field of substance use. I've been doing it for 8 years. The marriage was still intact, kind of dented, and there was a lot of neglect from my wife. I was consumed with just like starting this career. She became an afterthought, and it was sad. And I would look at
Mm.
her and I'm like, I want to reach out, but I can't, it's just so confusing and lonely and rough. Um, and then things, COVID happened. Um, and things came to a head. My wife and I, were in close quarters. Um,
I think this happened to many people during the
Yeah,
pandemic.
well, COVID's been, the spiritual perspective of our program is very good because we can see these problems as bearing gifts. So COVID
Mm,
changed a lot of people's lives. It was like an inventory for the world, really. Like it was like, oh
yeah.
shit, I need to rethink my shit here.
Oh,
And my
hell
wife,
yeah.
God bless her, she progressed in her career. She wound up getting promotions. She's a copywriter, meaning she writes ad copy for an ad agency, and
Mm.
she did really well. And I'm struggling not knowing whether I still want to do this counseling thing. I'm working for a new company or a new organization doing it. Fortunately, everything was remote. And fast forward a little bit, June of this year, after my wife watching me having these meltdowns and not knowing what I'm doing. I'm going to therapy. Thank God I found a therapist who's a 12-step person. They're in sober for decades. So they were very helpful in helping me access some of this stuff that I'm sharing. And I was like, dude, all this stuff that you're doing is so disingenuous. No wonder you're sick. You're not
Mm.
well. And my wife in around June, I think it was, maybe a little bit before of last year, 2023, she because she'd been wanting to get out of New York City for a long time. I want to stay here. So that was, there's some incompatibility there with our life goals as a couple. And she asked me, she said, listen, my office, I can, although it's based in New York City, I can work remotely anywhere, and I want out, and I'm going to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. And
So
she was kind.
was this more like she wanted to separate from you, or she just wanted to be away
Well,
from
I
New
mean, my
York?
gut
Or
tells me that was sort of the yeah, but she had
all of
offered,
the
said
above?
you could come with. And I just kind of spotted that as, like, yeah, you don't do other people's inventory, but I've lived with this lady for 15 years. And I was like, you know what? I love her so much. I said, you just gotta go, and because I'm like, it did for me. I said, and this was in all honesty. I just said, this is gonna get worse before it gets better. You really, for your own sake, you should move as soon as you can. And I said, I
Mm.
love you, but I just, I'm not going to Charlotte, first off. And I didn't even really want to say I wanted to end things until later. I felt like it's just like when I was using, right? When we use, it's like an explosion, and the people closest to us get it.
Mm.
We don't have a program in our life. Like I heard an old timer put it like this: we can be a very efficient maniac. Okay. So in my insanity, I'm exploding, she's getting all of it.
Yeah.
And for years, the guilt, the shame that I was feeling, and just the uneasiness, I was like, I'm done. And when she said that to me, that she wanted to move, I was like, you know what? God is doing for me what I can't do for myself. I almost felt like saying to her, this place is on fire. Run, like go, just go, like you don't,
It's that factor feeling, though. I mean, sometimes we make these decisions. I mean, I just
no,
want to
no,
ask, like,
please question it.
sometimes we make decisions for other people because we think we know what's best for them, especially, I hate to say this, but especially men do that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's a male thing, I'll
But I
explore
do it
it. But
too. I think it's a codependent thing. Actually,
I think it's a
we
codependent
decide.
thing on probably on both
Yeah,
sides of the relationship. I don't
yeah,
really like to
sure.
speak for other people, but I
Yeah.
certainly own the codependency for me was to keep it going past the expiration date. The codependency
Mm.
thing for me was to say, hey, you know what?
But
Uh,
your
I,
expiration date or her expiration date?
either one or just the relationship in general, you know.
Mm. Okay.
But to even like kind of go further with that, it was more, let's, I just was a coward. I didn't have the ability to, even before she moved in, to say, hey, listen, this is too much for me. This is too fast, because I was afraid I was going to lose it. Just
Mm.
that's the codependency right there,
Yeah, we do things like that, don't
you
we?
know? So this is only new, waking up to all this shit. So
Right.
she moved out. Um, we've talked, and it's over. I mean, we're cool with each other.
Mm.
There's a line of communication. I try to keep from me, just for my own sanity. I just keep it very minimal. We have access to phone, email. if there's a need, like she needed because of the having a new ID, being in a new state, she needed paperwork from me, the wedding, the marriage certificate, license, whatnot, and like things like that. I make myself available. That's part of my ninth step in terms of
Mm.
that, and also she had some books here because she's involved in sort of the esoteric occult community. She's a tarot reader. And there's an occult bookstore up in the Bronx that was like a grassroots community deal. So she asked me, "Hey, I have all these books. Can you deliver them up there?" Absolutely no problem. And that's kind of where we're at. And she's healing on her end and prospering, and I'm healing on my end and prospering.
Good.
It's sad,
Well,
but like I'm learning. The recovery teaches us about, like you said, about the feelings. Feelings are not facts, but
yeah.
it's a fact that we feel. And one of the things I've learned, and over time, this is the beauty of like God to me. Okay. Although I might not have had the conscious awareness of all the stuff that was going on, but when I let go and I'm directed to people that I never met before, this AA
Mm.
group I had shared with you before that
Hmm.
is in Jackson Heights, they read literature and stuff that's outside of AA that I was getting hip to, and that I thought for many years I was like the only one. I found my tribe. I call them my tribe within the tribe.
That's
And that
great.
was because I let go. I let go. And a lot of the things I've been reading and studying, and I'd said this before in the previous podcast, and I'll just mention it again, for the benefit of whoever's listening, but more for myself, is the studying and the reading and the step work and all that stuff. This is part of the process. However, it's not God. Because I get sick in my mind sometimes and think I'm really the scholarly dude and I'm trying to get all brilliant or something. But the fact is, all these things are tools to open me up so God can come in, bring certain things to a conscious level to help me change. This is
Yes.
all through a lot of suffering. I've come to these understandings and I'm very grateful for it. Um, what was I going to say? So, with that said, now I was this recovery guy. I'm a counselor, and I was like, I don't want to do this shit.
I
Okay.
remember
And
we
I,
we
and I, and
started
I'm good
we
at it. I'm good
started
at I'm good at many things, and
we
I
started
enjoy
we
doing it.
started to communicate at that point, I remember. And we were going to online meetings during the pandemic, and you had
Hmm.
expressed that about wanting a change, but you didn't know exactly what it was.
No, I couldn't grasp it. So once
Yeah.
she moved out, and I was also in this band that was okay, but it was just too much for me. Even then, I let go of a lot of things that I said yes to that I should have said no to. So I
Mm,
quit my band for the second time, and this time it stuck. I really committed to it, and then this is how sick I was. The reason I was up at 3 o'clock this morning because I had gotten a scholarship to go to college to continue my studies as a substance use counselor, and it was like, dude, what are you doing? You're getting deeper in this. You're trying to leave, but you're doing this. What's going on? So I just sent an email to the scholarship board and just said, um, thank you, but no thanks. I did kind of do it in a, not, I didn't fully disconnect it, but I just said, you know what? I'm not ready for the um, spring semester. Let's go for the summer. And I sent those emails out just before
great.
we talked. And because this is a pattern, this is something I'm learning from the fourth step. This is one of my patterns. It's overloading, and I'm a garden variety addict. We all do that shit to a certain greater or lesser extent. So again, to go back to what I just read, I'm not beating myself up over that mistake. Fortunately, I got out of my own way, so I didn't have to do damage control because I know what that's like. I've had the reference point. Things. I'm not the kind of guy who can do a lot of things. I'm very like one thing at a time, and that's me. Some people they can do all kinds of shit. I'm not that guy. Now, the beautiful thing is now that the marriage has ended, and it ended as well as it was going to end. I'm not proud of how I spoke to my wife, and things like that. Um, but
Generally or in the breakup?
what's that?
Generally or in the breakup? Do you mean how you spoke with your wife?
When she asked me to move to North Carolina, I really
Okay.
it was very insulting and obnoxious, and I was like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" Like it was not very respectful. Of course, I did my best to make amends behind that, but it was when you're fighting with yourself, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not excusing my behavior. I'm just trying to learn from my behavior and just not repeat that shit.
Hmm. Yeah. That's all
Um,
we can do.
so with that said, where was I going with this?
The reading today, you said.
I want to, yeah, well, not punishing myself, man.
Mm.
So I now have an opportunity to return to the broadcasting business. It may not be the way I'd like it to be, but it's an entree back in. And God has been really pointing me in a direction. Um, I had interviewed with I'm not gonna name the company, but it's a big company.
Hmm.
I interviewed with them. Uh, but then when it came to, because I was just looking to do some part-time stuff, because they could only offer freelance work, although you have insurance and it's for a year and all this stuff. And I was kind of like, I was gonna play it safe. And I was like, nah, I'll wait till you have something, full time and I could be a staff and whatever. It's just not gonna happen. I've been out of that field for 8 years, and I had to rethink my shit again. I was like, you know what?
Mm.
If you really want that, and I videotaped bands when I was a kid. I loved movies. I went to film school. You know what I mean? I didn't go to fucking. I had nothing interesting in psychology or anything. Although I like it in my own personal way,
Hmm.
and I developed from it, but not as a career. And I just was like, you know what, dude, take a chance. So I reached out to them again, and I said, hey, I'd like to reconsider your offer. And so I'm hoping to have an interview with them towards the end of the month. And I'm going to go for it if it's offered.
Mm.
And I already feel like fucking relief. Because
Mm.
again, authenticity is so important. Now, a
Hmm.
lot of your normie, whatever you want to call them, they make, yeah, all right, made a shitty decision. I'm not in a
Earthlings.
job I like. They do all right. You know what I mean? But the way
Sure.
addicts and alcoholics act, we implode shit. We fuck shit up. I have to
Yeah, we do.
really be very cautious on how I conduct my life, and I've really learned that the hard way. And sometimes that's the only way we can learn, and that's God's grace and mercy is to allow me
Yeah.
to experience pain that I've inflicted upon myself, and to turn it over, and to be shown a different way to live. And I just want to read this briefly. I'm really getting into C.S. Lewis. Now, C.S. Lewis was a big influence on the early AAs and a lot of the folks that I've been hanging out with. And this is a really cool quote. It's from a thing he wrote about. I think it's called The Illusion of Self-Help. It's something like that. And he
Yeah,
says,
I love that expression self-help. It's like,
well, I was
it's
sharing with a
it,
newcomer. I said, I know you'll find our books in the self-help section, but this is not a self-help program. The 12
definitely.
steps is not a self-help program. I mean, if people have a different opinion, fine. I'm just sharing my experience,
Sure.
but it's for this addict who's caught a beaten clean, it's not self-help. It's God help. Because I give God the credit. When I come up with a good idea, like a real good idea, it's not me. It's God. When it's one of my brilliant, Ralph Cramden schemes, yeah, that's me. Frustration, scheming, twisting in my mind. That's all me.
That's only a Gen. That's a Gen X. That's a Gen X reference. I
Oh,
don't
Ralph
know if
Cramden.
it,
Yeah, that's true. All right,
love it.
so I'm gonna read this C.S. Lewis piece. Give up yourself, and you'll find your real self. Lose your life, and you will save it. Submit to death. Submit with every fiber of your being, and you'll find eternal life. Look for Christ, and you will get him. And with him, everything else thrown in. Look for yourself, and you'll only get hatred, loneliness, despair, and ruin. And a guy like me, I need the harsh language like that. And I'm cool. I'm cool with that
Mm,
because it reminds me of something that Johnny Cash talked about when he found recovery. He said it was
mm.
the end of me and the beginning of thee, meaning God.
Oh, end of me, beginning of thee. I love
Yeah,
that. Who
that's
said that?
beautiful. And I mean, and I
He
really could
wasn't
feel
Ralph
this.
Cramden, right?
What's that? Yeah, it wasn't Ralph Cramden's like,
Could you imagine Ralph Cramden quoting C.S. Lewis?
well, he was an interesting cat, Jackie Gleason. He
Yeah.
had a
Well,
lot of
him
depth
as a
to him.
person, but I'm talking about Ralph
But yeah,
Cramden.
the character, no, it would just be
Yeah.
total like to see that kind of transformation, that would be pretty miraculous, And
Yeah, it
we
would.
do
We
recover, we do
do,
change.
don't we?
I
Don't
feel
we?
so much lighter on a lot of things, like, and I think the beauty of when we make a dramatic change and are doing it from a place of authenticity and a place of a connection with our higher
Mm,
power, that inspires other people. Now, when you shared with me, and you said it on the podcast about your first marriage and that you were trapped behind this thing that you created.
second marriage.
Second marriage, excuse me. Uh, I'm sorry, I
Now I'm
didn't
on to
keep
the
up, but
third.
either way, the point was we do these things, it happens. I'm not saying, that has to be everybody, but to a greater or lesser extent, I'm garden variety addict, alcoholic, and I need a program. And if this doesn't show me
Yeah.
I need a program, it definitely, and if I didn't have a program, and
Mm,
if I wasn't clean, if I was still using one, I wouldn't even have these problems if I was using, you know. There wouldn't have been a marriage. There wouldn't have been any. There wouldn't have been a career. I can honestly say, yeah, I changed a career. I didn't like it. I mean, that's grown up shit. That was shit that I would look at other people. I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm just waiting for the
mm.
cop man. I don't know. What are you talking about career? Like 401k. What is that? I have big
Yeah.
boy grown up problems. I like that, never would have thought like, oh yeah, my marriage ended. Oh, the marriage ended. It's like, dude, you can't even hold on to a girlfriend. What are you talking about? Like it's like,
Yeah.
and it really taught me to live with some ease. Talk about beating myself up. My I guess you'd say my ex-wife now. She would tell me, give yourself some grace, because I would get
Mm.
really hard on myself.
Yeah, of course. I think we're more harder on ourselves than anyone.
Well, and I like the reading again. It talks about the self-pity. And and again, I always love the language of all the literatures, the different recovery stuff. I mean, I go to both fellowships, and I've said that before. But recently I've kind of embraced more of the AA literature. And
Mm,
I kind of like the harshness of it because I need it.
hmm.
Uh like when it talks about that, in order to have our defects of character removed, they have to become objectionable. And
Yep.
I like that. It's like, dude, like, do you really think that self-pity shit is sexy? It's like, no. Because I come from a place, the way I was raised and grew up and stuff, I was taught, on some level, that if you're not in pain, you're not doing
Excuse
life
me.
correct. What's that?
Excuse me. I just sneezed.
Oh, okay. It goes on tight.
Did you hear
Uh,
me sneezing?
no,
Oh, okay. I hope my, you hear me speaking, right?
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good.
I was
All right.
probably yammering as you were sneezing. Um, and also really the need for joy. I talked about this in the last or one of the talks we had. That's important to me as well. And to see the value in that. And I just don't. I was the kind of guy I have a lot of years, but I didn't have a lot of days, meaning I didn't have a lot of joy in those days. Be like filled with meltdowns, emotional meltdowns and stuff, and just like, just, and it's like, dude, you can only do this for so long. And using wasn't an option, but uh, suicide was on the table for me. And that was sad. And I'm glad that's not on the table for me anymore.
When was that?
It's been a long time going. It's been from on and off since 2015.
Wow.
You know, like I go a few months and I come in, and that there would be times where I'm like laying in the bed like all weekend. Like my wife be like, "Get out of the bed, come on!" And I'm like, it's like, nah,
Hmm.
I'm just gonna lay here with my self pity. A
You
friend
know,
of
it's
mine.
funny, but the thing is, Robert, I just wanted to share something too that,
Sure.
I think at least in my experience and in my experience being in the program in and out since I don't know 87,
Hmm.
88, and being clean from 97 onwards, I've experienced so many people around a certain amount of time in the program who hit deep dark depths of depression.
Yeah.
Um, there seems to be kind of a common denominator around 17 to 20 years. There's also seems to be like a 7, 8 year thing. Um, but I think mine hit so terribly around the 17th year
Mm.
that I was also in that position of wanting to die. And I truly believe that it's the issues that we haven't worked through. I think many addicts and alcoholics are so
Yes.
busy just trying to get our life together. I think most of us, or at least myself, and I know you were that variety, at
Hmm.
least I was, that it was a miracle that I could get up and make my bed in the morning. It was a
Yeah.
miracle that I would show up to meetings every day. It was a miracle I was clean. And it was a miracle that, like you said, this big boy stuff, right? It was a miracle that we could get anything together and all our energy for years. We're invested in that, just keeping it together. And then when all the other codependent stuff comes and all the adult children of dysfunctional family stuff comes
Yeah.
up because it rears its ugly head and we aren't equipped for it, it gets too much. And it
It
kind of
does.
takes us by surprise.
Yeah.
And for me, I turtled up for a while, and literally planned in my head that I was going to hang myself. And I know how that feels. It's such despair.
It really is.
It's
But I'm,
such despair.
but like I had mentioned before, like when I came across Bill Wilson's emotional sobriety and knowing that he suffered from depression, like here you got the co-founder of
Mm,
AA, so I didn't feel so bad anymore. This is why I think this is so important to have discussions like this and to have a podcast and things like this, and even like when people qualify at conventions or a meeting or whatever, that this come to the light because there's no need for us to suffer, and a pain
absolutely.
shared is pain lessened, and that's not corny, that's the truth.
It is the
And to
truth. And I
know
think
that there
off,
is a way out because we do have the steps, and the
yeah.
obsession's lifted, so now yeah, there's going to be the deep dark
But I
stuff.
think, but I think the most important thing is conversation because we all like to
Yeah,
get up
no
and talk
doubt.
and speak, right? And that's the thing. Like when we do a share or we do when we're speaking at a
Right.
speakers meeting, it's all kind of very general and we talk about the steps and we talk about this,
Sure.
but I think a benefit of stopping somebody and asking them, maybe not at a speakers meeting, but just like in this forum, where
Yeah, this
we
one,
say,
yeah,
okay,
this
so
is
what
perfect.
happened there? Like what
Yeah.
happened there? What was going on at that point? And what do you think, you got from that? And because I think a lot of people tend to say, okay, that's great. That's such a, you go to a speakers meeting and often you're either very, if someone speaks very well and doesn't tell
Right.
well war stories and they speak really well about their experience, their strength and their hope. And I would say, I mean, there is a proper way that they say to tell your story,
Hmm.
but
Well, I
that's
think, yeah, I mean, it's only it's a monologue, I mean, really.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
there's
I
not,
definitely get what you're saying because
so it's
well,
like
this is
this.
sort of like the meeting before the meeting, if you wanted to call it that, right? So these are the conversations that should be had, in my view. I don't necessarily say should, but this is
Yeah, it's
what I
nice that
try
they're
to go.
having.
This is what
Well,
I
they're
go for.
having. It's a good thing to have because it is
Yeah.
definitely that where you get to the get to those questions because you're inspired after a speakers meeting, but then you're at home and you put your own head on the pillow and you're facing
Yeah.
your own problems
Yeah.
and you think, oh, this person, spoke so eloquently and they don't have any of those problems, but we all do.
We all do. I mean, why would you be in the meeting? I mean, a friend
Yes.
of mine used to say this to me all the time.
Mhm.
He said, "There's always something going on with us."
Yep.
Yeah, just keep it. There's always something going on. But what I've learned from the whole thing is that I am right where I'm supposed to be. And what I mean by that, because I used to get really annoyed when people say that without a qualification, so I'll qualify it for myself, is that this is where I'm at in terms of my development and my recovery.
Yep.
I'm cool with that. You know, amends have been made, amends will continue to be made. There's a way out. We don't have to suffer. And also, like you were saying before about how, we're just trying to get it together. We're trying to get it together. And the common denominator in that, it's the big I am. And
Mm.
that's why it's not working. At least for
Mm.
me. And it's like, dude,
Hmm.
you
That's
can let all
interesting.
that stuff go. That's the beauty of it. It's like, dude, you're not in charge of shit, you know? You got your little piece of the world that you have a little bit of control over, the serenity prayer, change the things we can. And that's it. And that's all you're
Mm.
responsible. Really?
It's so
But I
true.
want to do all this. How did doing all this work for you? Not good. Okay, I'll stick with one little square on the checkerboard. I'm good. I'm cool with
Totally.
this now. And
Totally.
if it took a beating to get there, so be it. But I can walk with some
Absolutely.
ease and some peace.
Totally.
And I mean,
That's a good point.
I was a little wackadoo on New Year's Day. Uh, I work for a government. We have a government contract, so we're closed on New Year's Day. But I went to work. I went to work. I got up early on the train. And I go to there's shutters. I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? You left the house. And I was like, wow, you're kind of off. So I, called up a friend who lives near my office. We had breakfast. I went to a newcomers meeting, an afternoon meeting that would
Nice.
be open
Nice
near me
surprise.
in Queens, and it was beautiful. And the speaker, she had time, and she kind of talked, shared a lot about what I've been looking at in my life. And you know, we've run around in a whole big circle looking for happiness when it's right here, it's inside of you.
Mm.
And I
Yeah, we
really
just got
tap
to
into
show
that.
up.
I'm just tapping into that more than ever now. And I'm okay, like it's we create our own problems, and I'm just glad that you know, I've gone through this thing, and I'm hopeful that I'll be moving away from the being a counselor. I've definitely learned a lot from being one. I know I can do other things. I know I've learned that I'm capable of many things. It's all right. It's all good, really. I mean, I can't put a finer point on it than that, really. Then I get
Yeah,
to
it's
do a
good.
podcast and talk to you. I am also, though. I mean, I don't know if you want this recorded, but we had talked.
We don't cut anything here, so
Okay,
we just
so well,
use the raw
I'm just
material.
mentioning this like more generally, but
Mm-hmm.
the stuff you're involved with the Bhakti Recovery Group with the folks in India,
Mm-hmm.
and you had mentioned about me kind of maybe being involved. I'm still open to that, even though I might not be in a professional capacity, but maybe I will be. I don't know, but that's something I would be still interested in. So I'm not
Nice.
saying I just don't want to give the impression it's like, oh, I'm just, leaving that completely. I think there's ways of balancing things. There's ways that can That's the one thing too that we become free from in recovery is the black and white thinking. Like it's got to be like a total like, you know.
Absolutely. Actually, we should talk about that afterwards briefly.
Yeah, yeah.
I have something to talk about. It's not about the Bhakti Recovery Group. It's another project I'm working on.
Oh, okay, yeah. Listen, I'm
So I'm not
trying
I'm
to
not
be
gonna say it here
spontaneous,
yet
man.
because it hasn't been officially launched yet, but we're in the workings. So I'll let you know about that. We'll talk after.
Okay. I've been listening to the shorties. They're awesome.
Oh, thanks. Those are just kind of like glad someone's listening to my jabber jibber
Oh, it's good.
because
Well, do you get like me? I know on you say on the podcast the the email. How's that? You getting good feedback or
no, I actually don't get a lot of feedback. I don't get a lot of
yeah?
emails.
Mm.
But then
Well, I think
again,
your content's awesome. I think the people you get are
thank you.
great, and
Thanks.
it's really cool. I mean, this is a very special thing you got going on here.
Well, that makes me happy to hear. Thank you for
Yeah.
that feedback. I need it.
No, listen,
And
it's
if there's any other feedback, like, my brain is always looking for the
mm.
negative. So if there's any
Well, I
negative
like the
feedback,
fact.
please
Well, you
let me
said
know
it
too.
too. Like you said, these are more conversations. It's not like listening to speaker tape and stuff, those are
No,
great, and I get a lot out of them. But these are also there too because it's funny. A lot of the meetings sometimes it's kind of transient. So you go
it
in, you
is.
do your thing, and then everybody cuts out, and especially as I'm getting older, you know. I'm not in my 20s and shit where you can hang out for hours and hours and have energy to work the next day. It's just not there. So
No.
it kind of, and I know for me, like reading this thing kind of slapped me in the face. I haven't had a sponsor since my sponsor died. So I
Yeah, I
have
haven't
to
had
get
a
in,
sponsor in a long time.
and I
It's
really
been
need that
difficult to
again.
find one. Me too. It's real
Yeah.
difficult to find a sponsor, especially when you're up there in the old timers realm. I mean, I don't mind having a newcomer sponsor, actually. I
Mm.
wouldn't, not a newcomer, but I mean, someone with less clean time, but
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that
hard.
sometimes works. I've seen that work.
Yeah.
I mean, I found this one guy. I was working with somebody from AA and it just wasn't a good fit. They were kind of overstepping the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah,
When it
sometimes.
came to my marriage, and I was like, dude, this is no, that's not your purview.
I think, okay, my personal experience is this, Robert. I think that sponsors, for me, the sponsor function is a very simple function. That is someone who helps me through my step work
Yeah.
and to show me the thing of the program and for me to run things by before I make a stupid decision.
Yeah.
It's not a therapist. It's not somebody who is going to tell me what to do or how to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big girl and I've been in the program for a while. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way whatsoever. And I've got lots of people. I don't just like make decisions on my own. I do, but sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
and if I'm really, if I'm at a spot, I got my people to call. It's not like
Yeah, and I definitely through
I'm not
through
rogue or
my
anything.
experience have definitely I use a lot of discernment with who I share stuff
Yes.
with in terms of making a decision, but I definitely
Yes.
I got my crew in terms of that. And I'm really, even to make the decision to delay college or maybe even not doing it at all, I've reached out to people. But I feel really great that I made that decision this morning and went for it. And it was so funny. In my head, it was like, oh, I got to write this big deal. It's like, no, dude, just say something came up. I'm not ready to do that right now.
I think that's great. You're keeping it still as a possibility. You didn't close the doors.
No.
And what's the harm in it? I mean, try.
Yeah.
We trust God. I think there's two things. Perhaps there's maybe kind of a thing like, we get older and when we want that safety. I mean, when we're like in our 20s, we didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just
I mean, and also, I only have high school. I'm in my 50s. The job market's not friendly.
I
It's
believe
just
that's
not.
still a thing. How is that even possible to be still a thing?
It sucks, but at least that's been my experience. I'm open to alternatives, but I was applying for, just to see like different things and was like, wow, I'm not, I think maybe a lot of it is being overqualified because I was like just looking for part-time work when my wife moved out. I was like, well, it's now a one income household and that my disease was acting out during COVID. I blew a lot of money on Grubhub and stuff, So my savings took a hit, Jeff Bezos
Yeah.
prospered from my insanity. So um but I'm a big boy and I was like, oh, well, let's see what I could do. Let me see if I can get some part-time work and I mean, I was even just willing to do like a telemarketer thing over the weekend remote from the house. Nothing, like not even a wink in my direction applying these places. What the fuck?
It's
So
all about, I've never gotten a job like that anyway. I've always gotten
yeah,
jobs through
it's always been
connections.
somebody I knew. Even the
Yeah.
TV gig that I interviewed with, I got. And what was really refreshing, is the guy was a little older than me, because once I hit the big 50, everybody under 40 is a child to me. So you know, I like think that I kind of look at them like it's like the Little Rascals. Like, you ever see the Little Rascals episodes where they would try to be like an adult and they would wear like a oversized clothes and it didn't
Yes, of
fit. There's a
course.
big so like I look at a young person like that, especially like it's like somebody in authority. Like I'm like, you're a little
Uh,
kid in this little outfit. Oh, that's such a nice little tie. All right, maybe maybe that's ageist and shit, but that's how I see it. And
I
I
don't
was
know.
like, well, I was so happy to see that this guy wasn't a child. I was like, thank God. I was like,
Yeah, it's
he was a
difficult. It's
little older,
difficult.
and he's
It's
old school
so
like me.
funny when you get that.
It's
It's
and
like
it's a
when I go to
cultural thing too.
even if I go to a doctor and I get a doctor who's like 26 years old, I'm like, there's a child
Yeah.
taking care of me right now. Like,
Yeah, I'm like, yo, are you kidding me? Like,
I know, but I guess,
but you have to roll with it. It's
of
all good.
course,
And they treat us weird too. Like
they
we're gonna
do.
fucking break or something. Or like, yes, sir. I'm like, yes, sir. I'm like, where's my dad? Like, come on, man. But then again, I look like a cop, so sometimes it scares them. So I kind of get off on that.
That's hysterical. So yeah, we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, I hope you got something in there.
We did. I did. And I think it's again to be continued, don't you think?
Yeah, if you're into it. I mean, I don't know if I want
I'm
to do one
totally
this
into it.
early again, but I
No, we don't
definitely,
have to do it this early
yeah,
again. I
but
just
this just worked out, and to be honest with you, I wanted the therapeutic value of one addict
me
helping another,
too.
and that's
It's
why I was like,
perfect.
yo, I'm not well, not that I was in a bad way, but I was like, yeah, God's good, take advantage. But
Absolutely.
he put G for G in my life.
Robert, so nice again to have you. I'm trying to get like regulars on the program. We can definitely have a regular thing,
Yeah,
once every
I
few
mean, I think
months.
maybe you have like, more than one, interviewee, like have three people or a panel of some sort, that might
Yeah, yeah.
be
I was
interesting.
thinking about that because you run out of people, and it's not that I'm running out of people. Actually, there's a few people who are I still have a bunch of lined up, but it's still like, it's nice to have a change. I don't know, just like you were talking about your career change and doing this and doing, I'm just a person who needs that. And not because of anything, but just that I get bored with things and I
Yeah.
need I need change. If I'm going to keep it exciting, I need to change it. So I
Yeah.
think regulars would be a great thing, and I think like a panel would be a great thing. That kind of stuff. I think that's amazing. Actually, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, no, this
So
really got my creative juices going, and it's a friend of mine. She's interesting. She's in recovery. Uh, she refers to it as what they call a left-hand path, which is like Satanism. She's a Satanist recovery person,
I,
and I actually have a book. It's not the program she's part of, but there's some other group. I mean, recovery is wild, man. There's all kinds of different ways to find recovery. And so
absolutely.
she's gonna have her podcast she wants me on. and she knows I'm a Christian and stuff, and she's like, no, it'd be great. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It's not gonna be like a battle of, philosophies or
Battle.
anything like that at all. I'm sure some of my Christian brothers and sisters would probably be a little upset, but no,
Yeah, well,
that's their problem. It's their problem.
yeah, we do what we do. There are some people who are open, some people aren't.
I'm just about
I'm on.
anything that's positive, and if it's working,
Yes.
I'm not gonna. Why would I? It's working for you, and
Yeah,
I just think
except for
it's
if it
really like
only
things
if it
like
like
this. This
if it's
what's that?
like some sort of like satanic ritual of killing children, then I'm
Right.
not
Well,
on
I'm
board.
certainly
But
not
yeah,
endorsing that, but
yeah.
and a lot of that stuff of what I know of those things from my own just reading and meet
Mm,
people like that. That's not really what that's really about. That's
no, that's a rarity, but it happens. Ugh.
no, I mean there are people that do that. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't, but LaVey, like Anton LaVey and
Yeah,
stuff. He didn't do that. He was just, he was just a vaudevillian, really.
it's so
You
true.
know, he's a
It's so
vaudevillian who
true.
liked ladies. I mean, that was,
So
I mean, to
true.
put it bluntly. But if it's keeping people sober, I'm like, hey, and you're not hurting yourself or anybody else. Who am I to say? I.
Yes. Yeah,
But
I
I'm just
totally
great.
agree with that.
Imagine like, you think about like, Alcoholics Anonymous and just the very fact that there really wasn't anything before that. I mean, you had the Washingtonians and there was a
Yeah,
lot of things,
in
attempts
the Oxford
before,
group. Yeah.
but there really wasn't. And to see the birth from that, how that's, and you mentioned the adult child of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. That was invaluable for me. That also came into my life.
Mm.
It's so funny how I truly believe this, that human beings are always on a quest for to use
Don't
the
say it. I was thinking
scientific
of the
term.
Murphy's Law sound
No,
song.
not that. Well, I mean they are in a way. I was going to
Yeah, I'm
say
sorry.
a quest for homeostasis, balance.
Yes,
Now,
agreed.
it may appear maladaptive through drugs or whatever it is, but it's always, and I know that from myself because
Love.
I was
Quest for
searching through.
love.
What's that?
Quest for love.
Quest for love. Yeah. Love, connection, spirituality.
Yes.
I mean, uh, when I got clean, I found a lot of stuff that I had, books that I was trying to get into, philosophy I was trying to get to, but it was just, got this big drug stuff in the way. And then when I kind of woke up, I'm seeing all this stuff that I've had accumulated. I was like, oh shit, I was really looking for God.
Mm.
I was looking for that. I just didn't know it.
Yes.
I just didn't have the term for it.
But I think a lot of us hardcore kids did back then. We didn't like establishment. We didn't like the way things were being run. We always knew that something was seriously wrong
Something
with,
suspect. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, with politics, with the material world,
The
with the
material realm.
principles,
Sure.
all of that stuff. And we're always kind of on a quest. And I was always, I mean, I went through the whole thing just like you did, like
Yeah, punk rock
frickin'
was like, I think, like, again, that was sort of like an entry level into understanding the dynamics of the material and spiritual realm.
yes,
Of course, we didn't
totally.
know that. We were like, oh, fuck the government. But that's a
Yeah,
start. That's the
yeah,
beginning.
absolutely, absolutely. And fuck the principles of the
I mean, to
society
me,
and
like being
why
a
and
Christian is punk rock because
sure,
I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. I mean, that's punk rock. I'm
absolutely.
separated, but I'm here, and I don't have
Absolutely.
to engage in things that I find detrimental to my spirit. That's
That's it.
punk
God
rock.
consciousness, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, let's actually wrap that up on
Yeah.
that level because I think that is a really nice way to say, hey,
Okay.
we evolve, we
You
learn
certainly
our
do.
lessons. What I got from this and talking to you is, going through our lives, in such a way that we take everything and we spiritualize it. And this is the beauty. We're both in the program. We've both been through punk rock. We're both in the program. You're more into the Christian thing. I'm into the Krishna thing, and we're both God conscious, and we're both saying the same thing. How amazing is that?
It's a beautiful thing. It's a universal thing. It's a universal energy or love.
Yes.
You know, I mean, if I look back from when I was in my 20s and listening to this guy who stands before you now, I would have been like, not even close to. I would have never thought I'd even be saying these things. And I like Robert. Robert's a good dude. You know, he's a good person, and I'm grateful that God gave me the benefit to just surrender. And I guess I could just kind of shut it down with this. This was something that revealed itself in my early recovery, and it stays with me to this very day. One of the things that I struggled with through my whole life was like, if I was ever part of any system, whether I was in a religion, whether I was even the 12 steps, anything, any sort of improvement, that I thought I would lose my individuality. Like I thought I would be like, bland or whatever. And then when I realized by participating and being in the 12-step process, that's a lie. I become more of myself. We become more of ourselves.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it, because the real value is in being yourself. I believe that I know that. It's not even a belief. I know this. And God revealed this to me through the 12 steps. That's part of my awakening. That's it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for
You're
again
welcome.
coming on the show.
And that was only on one cup of coffee, so that's pretty good.
Well, let's do this again next month. How about that?
That sounds good. The monthly recap.
That would be cool. I would.
Yeah.
I would.
And
love that.
listen, bring, you want other people to join the party. That's cool. I'm definitely open to that. I mean, I'm just open, but I'm also excited to talk about some stuff, off screen, so to speak.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thanks so much for coming again, and we'll talk.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for listening.
Thank you,
have
everyone.
a good day.
Take care.
Ciao. Haribo.
Haribo.
God bless.
God bless you.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.